Adam Nemer. I'm the founder of Simple Mental Health.
What inspired you to create Simple Mental Health?
I spent the first 17 years of my career as a senior executive at a multi-billion-dollar company, why I also was struggling with severe yet undiagnosed anxiety and depression. It was through the love and attention of a senior leader at our organization who had taken a mental health first aid class. And through the class, had recognized the signs that me and another colleague, senior leader, executive could be struggling, learned that I could be struggling and how to approach me thoughtfully. And it was what got me to get help. And so my life changed. And so that started me on the journey of of both in getting help
Yeah.
after so many years of undiagnosed illness, but also it started getting me thinking about leadership differently. Once you start going down the road of therapy and learning that 20 to 25% of us on any given year are struggling with a diagnosable mental illness, and it hurts like hell, and that you're struggling in silence, then you want to do something about it. So it got me to think about leadership differently, my lived experience.
Yeah. How does it feel to have a boss that, understands what you're going through?
It's everything. Early in my career, I had a senior director who worked on my team. Katie McClure is her name, and she shared with me, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses.
Yeah.
I didn't really fully understand. I didn't even kind of understand what she meant by that. But what I've learned is that when senior leaders normalize the topic of mental health on their teams, then all of a sudden it's just as normalized as any other health topic. People get health and business performance improves. I mean, it's really kind of that simple.
So for me, when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder too, I started getting treatment and feeling better, and then I told my boss and a few people, and I was starting to feel confidence. But the company I was with, the HR people said if I told people, it would make other people feel uncomfortable. uh, so
It's
I
all
didn't
about
say
leadership.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's all about. I am blessed. I worked for an organization who's a very mission-based organization and leadership, and by executives and leaders committed to creating cultures of psychological safety. So, you know, my what I had 17 years of severe mental illness, and I had no idea, right? My boss, a national leader, at a mental health first aid class at his church one day, they're going through the signs and symptoms that someone could be struggling, right? And he's like, Adam, 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 Adam. Oh my God, Adam's in a lot of trouble. And by the way, what happened early in life, when I was 29, getting groomed to run my family business, I found my dad when he died of suicide. Didn't get enough help. Got an MBA, got married, had this unbelievably Forrest Gump-like lucky career, but I basically spent 17 years in this state of complete anxiety, panic, and depression. I was CFO of the Kaiser care system in the Northwest, a $4.5 billion care system, having panic attacks all day long and having no idea that I was having a panic attack, right? Because I didn't know what it was. I just thought that life sucked. I was like going for 17 years as a senior executive, super sick and have no idea what was going on, but I didn't even know I was sick. And then I found my mom 7 years ago. I was doing a welfare check on my mom. She wasn't doing well, wasn't returning our phone calls one day. And so when I checked on her, I found her body after she had passed. And after all those years of illness, finding her, I had a complete emotional breakdown and I had no idea that I did. In that moment, when I found her body, I had a complete emotional breakdown. I Started wearing Levi's to work, wearing t-shirts. I wore flip-flops. Man, I wore sandals. I was running the Kaiser health plan in the Northwest at the time, and I wore sandals to work. Unbelievable. And about 3 weeks later, a national Kaiser executive, Kaiser hires very empathetic leaders. They really care. It's a beautiful, beautiful organization. He was at his church, a guy named David Lake, right? He's at his church one Sunday, and in his church, at the church, there he's taking a mental health first aid class because there's mental health first aid that
Yeah.
it's a wonderful program. And in the class, when they were sharing with them, these are the signs to look for in someone if they could be struggling with their mental well-being. David was like, Adam, 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 Adam. Oh my God, Adam's in a lot of trouble. The next day, and then when they teach you how to approach somebody thoughtfully in a non-confront, in a safe, caring, and
Yeah.
judgmental manner, he came up with the idea of this. Literally, the very next day, he calls me into his office at like the first thing in the morning. I have no idea why I'm showing up at his office. He says, as I walk in, he goes, "Hey man, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great." He goes, "Well, I know now that you found your dad's suicide earlier in life. I never knew that before, right? I never talked about it. People didn't ask. I would have talked about it, but no one asked me about it. And I know, you just found your mom. Are you sure you're doing okay?" I said, "I'm doing great, man. I found one pair and I can find another." I really thought I was doing okay. He goes, "Well, you know, you look okay." And his ability to say that at the time is amazing. His presence of mind to say I looked great was just a gift. He goes, "You look great, Adam, but, do you know the signs to look for in yourself in case you might need to get some help down the road? You've had some traumatic experiences in your life, and I'm not worried about you. You look great." How can you could say that? But he's just amazing, the presence of mind to say that at the time. And he asks me if I know the signs and that to look for in myself down the road in case I might need to get some help. And, as I said, no, he literally slid the business card of our company's employee assistance program across the desk to me. And he's like, "Give EAP a call. You should at least know the signs to look for in yourself in case you need to get some help." And that 5-minute conversation changed my life, right? The next day, I saw the EAP counselor, walked me through the checklist. And that's where I finally realized after all these years what I was going through. I had no idea how sick I was because I checked every single box of, not mild or moderate severe mental illness, but I checked every box of severe mental illness. And I had to, I had to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to run an insurance company like this? But it was through the love and support and caring attention of a senior executive at a $90 billion company who helped notice that I was struggling, that helped engage me in the conversation so that I might go get help, and inspired me to. Now I run this organization. It's called Simple Mental Health, and our goal is to go teach leaders how to have these 5-minute conversations and inspire them and educate them on why it's so important. How, as leaders normalize the topic of mental health on their teams, lives get just transformed and performance gets unleashed. What happened is, by the way, how I ended up from there to here. 7 years ago, I see the EAP counselor, and when I came back to work, I was gone for about 3.5 weeks. And starting antidepressants, therapy, all that
Yeah.
stuff. And hey, you mind if I tell you a side story for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I love it because I never tell this to people, but I love this thing. I think if you want to know about leadership, but you got to remind me where I was because I'm going to forget this. But when I saw the EAP counselor, because I think this is what leaders need to do right here. If you, like, a lot of people will say, if you have an employee struggling with mental health struggles, what should you do? My answer to them is, well, what do you do if they have a physical illness? If
Right.
someone has a cold, what do you say? If someone has stage 4 cancer, what do you say? If someone has stage 1 cancer, you just say the same thing. So here's what happened to me is when the day that I saw the EAP counselor, it completely crashed. And I realized that I needed to go. I made an appointment to see a therapist the next day. But the next day when I woke up, I couldn't move. Something had happened in my head that I literally, my brain turned off, right? It was like after all those years of not knowing what was going on and using all my resilience to hide it and keep it hidden from everyone in the world, my brain just imploded, right? And it was like a computer whose cord got turned on and off, right? I couldn't move my body. I couldn't move my legs. I mean, I couldn't stand up. Um, and so I called David, the person who had my senior leader, and I didn't know who to call, right? So I called him. I said, and he goes, "Well, Adam, do you know how to? Did EAP tell you the how to call?" I said, "Yes, I have the emergency psych hotline." He goes, "Okay, Adam, here's what I want you to do." He goes, "Is it okay with you if I tell your senior leadership team what's going on?" I said, "Yeah, I love them. They love me." He goes, "Listen, what I want you to do right now is just call the psych hotline that Dave Poppleton, EAP, gave you, and then turn your computer off, turn your phone off. Don't worry about us. Me and your leadership team, we're going to run the health plan here until you get back. Don't worry about nothing. If you want to, I love you. You're a brother. You're a brother to me, Adam. I love you like that." Senior leader talking like this. "And you know I'm always here for you. If you want to call me to talk, I'm always here for you. But don't call me. You don't have to call me to talk about Kaiser stuff. Turn all of that off. Just worry about you." That's what he said to me. And that's what allowed me to then have that first feeling of, oh my God, I'm not going to get fired, right? I can go get help. And that first fear of what would happen if I get help. Oh my God, they don't let people who check all the boxes that I check run $4 billion health plans, right? And that was my biggest fear. And so that piece of leadership that David showed in that moment, it was beautiful. Just beautiful. Anyway, so when I come back to work, right, uh, uh, I started thinking about uh, leadership differently, right? We had maybe, I don't know, 400, 500 people on our teams, and there's 200,000 people in Kaiser in our little part of the world, 400 or 500 people. I learned that, 1 out of 20 Americans every year experience a clinically diagnosable mental illness. And I'm like, wait a minute. That means I got like 75 people on my teams this year on my watch who are going to be in just as much pain and silence as I was in. And half of them aren't going to get help. Oh my God, I have a healthcare crisis on my hand. When I start thinking like, oh my, what if I had 75 of our folk are going to have cancer this year, or heart disease, or diabetes? It would be our number one business problem, right? All strategic planning. If someone comes up to your business leader and says 20% of your employees are going to get cancer this year, we don't know who they are, but heads up, it's going to be 20% of them, and half of them aren't going to get help. That would be your number one. You'd be bringing oncologists and you'd be doing health screenings, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I have a health crisis on my hand. And so we brought mental health first aid training into our teams, and we piloted the program for Kaiser. And what happened is, as we rotated 300-400 people into these trainings over a couple of weeks, and then as we used the information, as I started talking about my mental health journey and what was going on with me, and everyone else started talking about theirs, our business performance improved across the board. Employee engagement, retention, productivity, recruiting, every key performance indicator. We went from being a mid player in the middle of the market in terms of customer service measures to being the highest rated region of any Kaiser area in our health plan performance. And in the Pacific Northwest, we were on almost every customer service measure, we were number one as a health plan in the Northwest 2 years later. Because what happened is that I was just trying to get people healthy. I just didn't want people to feel like I felt.
Yeah.
Turns out that once we started talking about it, there's a lot of people that felt that way. And so what I learned was that when the senior executive leader says out loud, hey, I'm broken too, and they normalize the topic and say, it's okay, man. I'm still the lead. I can still be a good leader here. I could be a leader here if I had cancer. I can be a leader here with this. It's going to be, then it opened up the space for everybody else to talk about what was going on with them. Then all of a sudden, at work, we were talking about our feelings, right? And that's how people get you talk about your feelings. They call it talk. It's like, it was just amazing. And it literally, I watched our teams improve performance. I'm a CFO. I'm a recovering CFO in an operations job. I'm watching our performance go up and up and up as our mental well-being and engagement goes up and up and up. It was just absolutely believable. And so that's what inspired me to start Simple Mental Health. It's because that's where I learned that when a senior leader normalizes the topic, performance gets unleashed and lives get transformed. It's like it's a secret sauce. It's beautiful.
How does it feel for you to go to all these different companies and change the mindset?
Yeah. It's my self-care that helps me feel better. You know, it I before these experiences, I heard about, you hear people say, I have a calling to do something, right? And, if someone said, what's a calling? I'd say, well, it's someone who's motivated by something and they go do something. But I didn't feel it, right? I couldn't really feel what a calling was. But I now understand what a calling is because I spend all day long, every day of the week, 7 days a week, talking with people on stage, on podcasts, on virtual sessions, sharing the stories of the hardest times of my life and like reliving this shit over and over again. And it's one of the few things that actually really makes me feel good. I think that my theory, what I've talked with my therapist about, my theory is that, think about one of the myths of mental illness is that, if you talk about suicide, you could put it in someone's head. So, after my dad died of suicide, no one really talked. I kind of felt, I lived in a city where I knew everybody, but people didn't talk with me. It was just, I don't know. I felt all alone.
Yeah.
Right. And, so, when your dad dies of natural causes, for the rest of your life, his friends come up to you when they see you and say, hey man, I really miss your dad. Right. I got it. And they tell you stories, right? When your dad dies of suicide, they don't come up to you anymore. They don't come, no one, you don't, no one ever. I can count on two fingers since my dad died of suicide when I was 29 years old, there are two people in my life, and I remember where I was, who came up to me and said, I really miss your dad. He was a great guy. Two. So, and all I wanted was to talk about it. But the shame and stigma of the illness is I didn't want to be the suicide kid, right? I didn't want it to define me. So I didn't bring it up, but in my office, I had pictures of my dad all over. No, I swear to God, for 20 years, I had pictures of my dad in my office. No one ever said, well, geez, you talk about your dad all the time. Where is he? No one ever asked. So I spent all of these years in silence, right? And not going to therapy, not talking about it, using all of my everything to keep it hidden. So, once we unleashed me talking, you can't shut me up. So I started, so like 5 months after I came back to work, I had an all hands meeting with a couple hundred staff because they were like, where's Nemer been? We haven't seen him for a while. And they were used to me being there all the time, right? And so I had the head of Kaiser's mental health help me, and I shared with them what was going on in my life, right? I come back to work, I told them about my dad's suicide. I found him, told them that I was in therapy, that I was really ill and I needed all their support, etc. A couple days later, I show up for work. I had this many thank you notes. It was amazing, right? I shared by sharing with them that story and getting all these thank you notes. And then the next day, 2 days later, I went for a walk with this young guy in our team that we recruited from Colorado who, as we were walking, he started thanking me. And I'm like, why are you thanking me, Cameron? And he's like, well, when I was a kid, I attempted suicide. And I went to therapy, but it didn't work. And I know I don't want to die. I just thought my life was always going to be sad. And then I heard you, my boss's boss, my senior leader, share that you were going through the same thing, and that even though therapy wasn't working yet, you were in it for the long haul. That it inspired me to give therapy another shot. And he was just thanking me. Because he had a therapy appointment coming up in a couple weeks, and he was just thanking me for inspiring him to do that, right? And so I found that, like, all of a sudden, as a kid, I wanted to be a ski racer and follow the dead and work with my dad. I don't want to be I don't want to run a $4 billion insurance company. I mean, who wants to claw their way to that, right? And so that when he told me that, when Cameron, and he knows I tell the story and he knows I use his name, we talk all the time. We chatted this summer, and I can tell you that 7 years later, can report that Cameron's thriving in life. He's happy, he's optimistic, got a great group of friends. He's like a leader of teams in 3 or 4 states for Kaiser right now. And what happened is that just unleashed in me this power of talking. And I found that the more that I talked about it openly with people, somehow I could breathe better. And so I started giving talks at departments in our company. I'd say, I'll come share my story with you guys so that other people go get help. And it would be really hard to do, but I would feel better. And so that's where what evolved. I've started Simple Mental Health 3 years ago, after doing a lot of conversations with folk in leadership venues in my organization and MBA programs, because what I can't say I found my calling. I did not find my calling. It just happened. It's this magnetic pull. Now that I've started doing this, there's nothing else that I could possibly do, right? So when I go in and talk with organizations, and we can see folk take it seriously and see some tears in senior leaders' eyes, and have them, you get folks to open up and see them roll it out. It is, I don't know, it's like a rush. I'm a skier, right? It's like doing a big ski jump, and I'm a golfer. It's like hitting a great golf shot. I mean, I debate with my kids, why is skiing fun, right? Why do you love that? Going down ripping a big turn, going really fast, ripping a big turn. Why is that fun? Why is swinging a golf club and hitting a drive 250 down the middle? Why is that fun? I don't get where the chemical notion of fun. But for me, when I'm talking with business leaders, and I'm sharing my story, and I see I'm connecting with people, for me, it's fun, like skiing at the top of a mountain in a blizzard, popping a cliff with my kids, or hitting the ball in a beautiful drive. It makes me feel good. And, interestingly, and perhaps unsurprisingly, when I speak with business leaders, and there are a lot of them who don't get it, they're not ready for this, who really just argue with you and say, "Oh no, that's it hurts me, right?" I'm not really, as an entrepreneur, I'm not good at hearing no. When I see business leaders, and of this many business leaders I speak with, I'd say 30% of them are totally open to this, and the rest not yet so much. And these guys, it warms my heart. And these guys, I just got to get over here as fast as possible because when I'm talking with these folks, it's the greatest experience ever, and it's why I do what I do. When I'm talking with folk who just aren't ready yet, it the negative reaction, it hurts me. And I haven't yet gotten to that place as an entrepreneur where it doesn't hurt me yet. So man, I as soon as I can sense that a business leader is not going to get this and they're not in it, it's going to be a no. I try to get off the phone as fast as I can't. There
Right.
are millions of business leaders in America, and therefore there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them who are open to this and they want this and they're ready for it and they're calling every day. So let's, go where, let's start with the folk that really want it. And then it's every day it gets more and more and more and more and more as the word spreads, as people see how business performance improves as you do this, then more and more people are open to it. It's amazing.
I know there's probably a lot of people with mental health issues don't want to not only want to succeed in business but want to be leaders, and your story is very inspiring, and it helps me because I create my own thing. I want to lead, I want to help people, so hearing someone else succeed makes me feel good. But what would you say to anyone who wants to follow your footsteps?
As a leader,
Yes.
lead from where you stand. No one, um, there's, as a leader, wherever you are in an organization, there's, I don't, there's like this hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
And if you wait for the people above you to become mental health literate and use that knowledge at work, that's not you. Just go become mental health literate. Take a mental health first aid class. Give us a call. We can do it in 3 hours for you. Choose to become mental health literate. Choose to learn the signs that someone could be struggling with their mental well-being. Learn how to approach them safely in a non-judgmental, caring manner. Learn how to guide them to services that your company provides. Learn how to normalize the topic of mental health. We teach you that in 3 hours, right? And then you use that information in work every day and how you show up. As leaders, we all get to choose how we show up each day, right? How do people around us experience us, right? And what we teach leaders to do is to say, listen, as you're developing the avatar of your leadership, who are the leader you want to be, include in that mental health literacy. You have physical health literacy. If you were at a senior leadership team meeting over lunch and somebody was choking, everybody would know how to do the Heimlich maneuver and save your colleague's life. But at that same senior leader lunch meeting, someone could be having an anxiety attack and no one knows how to help them, let alone even notice it, right? And so these are critical skill sets that can be easily learned in 3-4 hour classes and then just be rolled out. And so it's just leading from where you stand is the key thing. And, I want to dispel one thing about, you said it's good to hear leaders talk about this. So let's just be really clear. And let's just go give some facts, okay?
Yeah.
A couple months ago, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, put together their 2024 study of workplace mental well-being and performance. And amongst the stats they found, I'm not gonna get the numbers exactly right because I'm not looking at the study right now, but it was something like 30 managers have a 34% or 37% higher likelihood of struggling with their mental health at work than staff do. So, people say, well, leaders don't struggle with their mental health. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Listen, here's the fact. And we know this now from Mental Health America last year, it's 24%. 1 out of 4 Americans now experience a clinically diagnosable mental illness every bloody year. It just is, right? And it's 1 out of 4 people in every single room you're in. Whether it's, construction workers or senior leaders of a board. It just isn't. And there's an organization now in Silicon Valley led by a brilliant dude named Jason Kavanaugh called the Founders Mental Health Pledge. The Founders Mental Health Pledge um, uh, uh, has organized the venture capitalist community to pledge that VCs that join the Founders Mental Health Pledge, they say, we are going to invest in the mental well-being of the entrepreneurs and founders that we invest in, because we know it's not just the right thing to do for their health, but entrepreneurs and founders have statistically higher rates of mental illness than other people. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because the stuff you got to do to be an entrepreneur, you're working all the time. You're not able to do self-care. It's a hard life. Entrepreneurs, leaders, founders, business leaders, we got to cut this bullshit that leaders, this is not about leadership. It is about leadership. And I found that. So here, a funny story. At Kaiser, as soon as I started talking about what was going on with me, I don't know, 25% of my executive colleagues would come up to me behind the scenes and say, thanks for sharing it. I kind of, me too, right? But it was literally about 25%. And so I really just think it's this, people experience it.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Fulfilled. So I don't know. I'm just I don't know. I believe my grandparents and parents, the community I was raised in, the people around me, my culture, my faith at the time. I was raised to really believe that Margaret Mead concept, Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist from the 20th century, what's her famous phrase? Everyone knows it. Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world, because when in fact nothing ever else has. I was raised on that. I believe that. And I had a spiritual experience. My spiritual awakening was, I've never shared this with anybody. I've never thought about it as a spiritual awakening before, but I had like a leadership spiritual awakening. Wow, I've never thought, and what that leadership spiritual awakening was that by talking about mental health, it improves lives and improves performance, right? So what I learned from that is that, and I just know this to be true because I lived it, that we can solve the mental health crisis in America through the leadership of business community.
Mm-hmm.
All we have to do is get mental health literacy and mental health first aid and similar like programs. It's just part of standard training. All big companies have employee health and safety training. On average, companies in America spend $1,500 a year per employee on training. This training costs $200-300 per person, right? It's just, this is not complicated. And as organizations and leadership, 95% of Americans work. And we're going to work each day, and the SHRM studies are showing that they're making us sicker, right? 35% of the American workers in that same SHRM study said that the American workplace is making their mental health worse, right? So therefore, what simple mental health is here, you say, where do I hope our mission is in 5 years? And I say it's fulfilled. It's because our vision, simple mental health is here to create stigma-free mental well-being work culture across America. And we do that. Our mission is by educating business leaders on the business case and hopefully inspiring them on the human case to normalize the topic of mental health in their teams and to build a culture of mental well-beings throughout their organizations. And that's what we're here to do, because when we do that on our teams, people get healthy and business performance improves. And if people get healthy, the crisis that we have in America is in a large part driven to the illness that we get each day at work when we leave work every day and our workplace made us sicker. And then we have a lack of supply of therapists in the world to be able to take care of us. So if the workplace was not only not making us sicker, but if we left each work a little happier each day than when we got there, there's this beautiful cycle of an opportunity that business leaders can change the world by becoming mental health literate. And so what's my dream in 5 years is that the vision and the mission of what we're trying to do hasn't changed. We're just way further down the road of fulfilling it, because it's so darn simple. It's like, how do you create a culture of mental well-being on your teams and drastically unleash performance and change lives? Take a 4-hour class and use what it teaches you the next day at work. That's all. Shit, I mean, it's really that easy. I know it's that easy because that's what we did, and it happened.
How can people reach out and learn more?
You can find us on simplementalhealth.com. Find us at Simple Mental Health on LinkedIn. Email us at info@simplementalhealth.com. And you can also ring us at our line at 503-970-2050.